Good evening and welcome back to the RAD podcast. And we're happy to be back again this morning. I'm about to say this morning. Let you know my day been long. Be back this Monday. Um, I'm one half of this dynamic team, Larry Jefferson, straight out of Dallas, Texas.
Man, you must be tired, bro. Talking about his morning.
Hey, been one of those
Hey,
days.
Dantrayl Smith, the second half, the better half of this podcast. You know what I'm saying? The younger half, I guess I should say, of this podcast duo, and super excited to be here. If you did not get a chance to check us out last week, make sure you go to our YouTube channel, RAD Podcast Season 4. Yes, we're on Season 4. Make sure you check us out. I also dropped the link to our website on Buzzsprout, where you can get access to all of our episodes, along with finding the different other platforms that you use frequently to check us out. So, if you did not hear about it, of course, last week we kind of started this new series on social media, and we talked about the rise of the digital age, right? And so, kind of what was the purpose and true intentions of social media, and how has it impacted over the years as it's came to formation early on to where it is now. And so excited to talk about today's episode, man, because me and you were ready for this one. We were ready to talk about the
I
dark
know.
age, the dark side.
I know. Hey, but I ain't gonna lie. This whole week, all I could think about is, man, when if they gonna crank up MySpace again? You know, man, I miss MySpace, boy. My page used to be jamming when you logged into that mud.
Man,
But
I was Black Planet, man, all day, every day.
yeah, that's too much trouble right there. And that's Anyway, we're gonna skip over that part. But nevertheless, we have two amazing panelists, and we'll allow them to introduce themselves. Ms. Hill, do you want to start first?
Of course, happy to. Welcome, everyone. My name is Erica Hill. I live in Lawrence, Kansas. I'm the director of finance for our healthcare system and foundation, and also the director of health equity for our foundations for our health system. I am currently the past president of our board of education. I'm currently serving out the rest of my term, and also the vice president of our Lawrence Douglas County Public Health Board. So I really enjoy these types of conversations, and I'm really excited to be here.
Thank you for being here.
Hey, y'all. My name is Dr. Jared Watson. I'm an assistant professor of marketing at NYU Stern. I do research on social media, online consumption, shopping, all of that fun stuff. That's me.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. So it's okay with y'all. We're gonna jump right into these questions, and more so this conversation as we talk about the dark side of social media. So the first question asks, how does social media impact mental health, and what are some common challenges that people are facing these days?
Cool. I can kick it off. We're talking about the dark side of social media today. And it's a sad fact that by just about any metric, any national or international survey, people are lonelier than ever before. At the same time, right, people show a higher incidence of depression. And we have more access to connection through social media than ever before. So it's quite paradoxical in nature. Some people question that. I think others lean into that and say, hey, it's actually causal. So one of these big impacts of social media is a decline in mental health.
Definitely. And so, like I mentioned, I serve as past president of our Board of Education. And in fact, we had a presenter come to our board talking about this very topic just a couple of months ago, and how it really affects the mental health of our students. Women in general, like, comparing ourselves to another person that's probably using a filter. And so we end up like starving ourselves trying to look like that, or, buying the latest serum for our face and things like that. And so we really, and it's not just students, as adults too. Like, we compare ourselves to other people, and then we think we're not, our life isn't as good as their life. And then we start questioning our value as a person. And so it's a vicious cycle. I'm not an expert like Dr. Watson is here. I just have like lived experiences. I have a teenage son. I've seen the impact that this has had on his mental health. You know, back in the day when I was younger in school, you know, we would have squabbles at school and it kind of stayed at school. Like it ended at, you know, Friday at 3 p.m. But now it's like nonstop around the clock. So it's just it's tough. It's a tough environment.
I got to follow up with that. If
Ooh, okay, here we go. Let's go, baby.
and you know this is, and I'm trying not to bring out my psychology part on this. So, um, and just to simplify it, if they know it's causing so much trauma to them, mental health issues, why do they stay on it?
Just like anything, it's like I think it's like an addiction. I
Okay.
mean, I don't think people are, you know, it's not helpful, but I think it's an addiction.
Yeah, I mean, I think to add to that, right? So it's a big presumption that the average person knows that it's bad for them, right? So most of us, when we're on social media, we feel good, and when we're off social media, we feel less good, and we don't make that correlation, right? And so the challenge we have is educating people and educating them that online is not real life. To Erica's point, right? We do these upward comparisons, and in that moment, we fantasize. So we say, like, oh, what would it be like to be them? Oh, that's great. It allows us to escape. But at some point, we come back to reality, right? And that's where the harm sets in. And that's where we're relying less on, to your point, Larry, not to get too deep into the psychology of it, but that's where we're relying more on our affective structures, right? Our feelings, as opposed to our cognitions or our thoughts and our understanding of this stuff.
Gotcha. Appreciate that.
So one of the things I was in kind of a piggyback off of Larry's follow up, because I was reading this book, and it was the book was a social media. It was like social media, and it's like terrifying negative effects on people, right, with depression and anxiety. And so, like within that, I can forget the author's name, but within that, a few chapters out of the book, he talked about the average time that young children, meaning like adolescents, all the way up into young adults, were spending on social media. And the numbers, in my opinion, were very alarming when I was looking at, you know, the number of kids that were actually always on social media, right? Talk a little bit through it about some of those effects, right? The negative effects of being on those platforms for long periods of time and how it can affect their, you know, your life.
Let's start with, taking it back to MySpace. So most of us can remember MySpace.
Yeah.
And what was, MySpace had a few defining features, right? Like, yeah, you could change your background, you could add music. But the most important was top 8. Were you in somebody's top 8, right? And what happened when you were removed from somebody's top 8, right? That created challenges for us because that started to merge this offline and online world, and we thought, okay, this person hates us, they don't like us, something's going on, right? And that created beef because of whatever challenge, like, oh, you added your girlfriend and removed me, but I'm supposed to be your boy. What's that about? And you extrapolate that to today, and people aren't just looking at the top 8, people are looking at who's liking my content, who's sharing my content, who's giving a comment. Was that comment authentic? Were they being backhanded, right? One of the big challenges is we put this content out in hopes of engagement, and we engage in hopes of reciprocity. We hope people respond to us, right? And so we create these sort of pseudo relationships, all chasing, right, a response from somebody. And when we don't get that, that's where the tragedy sets in. That's where the sadness, the feelings of loneliness, disconnection, anxiety, right? All of these are very, very real challenges that come from that. One of those things that underpins this, right, is there are actual chemical reactions that we have. So when we talked about social media being addictive, it kind of is, right? So when we get likes, when we get attention, it releases dopamine in our brains. So it's just like eating candy. It's just like having sex. It's like all of these behaviors that we derive pleasure from, right?
I don't know
And
about
when
that
we're not
last
getting,
Yeah,
what's
I don't know
that?
about that. I don't know about that
I
last
don't
one.
know about that last one.
Right. I can't comment on that one, man. I don't know about that one.
I hear that. And so, when we're not getting that, right, it hurts. And so I think that's the big challenge is it is the depression, it is the sadness, it's also the anxiety, the fear of what's going to come next, that are all kind of related in that space.
Agreed. And I would add that on top of that, like we have a negative impact on real life relationships. I can't tell you, and I'm guilty of this as well. I can't tell you how many times we'll be like in the airport or eating dinner and we're all on our phones. It's like, no one's engaging with each other. You wake up in the morning, instead of saying good morning to your spouse, you're on your phone. You're checking Facebook, you're checking email. I will say I do that. So, just it does impact your relationships, or you're, having a conversation and you're on your phone, like you're not listening to me. Oh, I hear you, but you're not listening to me. You're not engaging. You don't have that eye contact because you're scrolling through Twitter, or you're scrolling through Facebook, looking at whatever people are doing outside of your home. So we're chasing that, like you mentioned, Dr. Watson, but then like in real life, we're really ruining relationships of people who are right in front of us too.
Like that.
Larry, I think we got a question.
Yeah, so that's one of the things that we do. We allow our audience to ask questions. So, Ta, shoot away.
Hi. So I just have a question, and I will say I am 100% not an advocate of social media. And with that being said, I'm just not on any of it. And that's just my personal preference. I don't have anything against people that are on it. But I'm just kind of curious, like, from a professional perspective, what event transpired or what do you think happened that now we are in a culture and we are in a society that's so shallow, in my opinion, where they're like, hey, look at me, hey, look what I can do. Like they're like almost needing attention. Or I mean, what do you think happened that like now it's like we're such a needy society where we have to have a like, or we have to post a picture just to simply say like, hey, look at me. Like what do you think? Is that like a form of narcissism, or what do you think that is?
Yeah, so I like the term for the era that I think we're in, right, is the attention economy. And so what's caused that? It's just efficiency, right? People have always desired human connection, human interaction. They've always desired adoration and admiration, right? What social media has allowed us to do is to have a seemingly efficient route to garnering that attention, right? And as a function of that, not only has it made it easier for people to post and receive feedback, it's also made it more competitive, right? So now anybody can be a celebrity if they just post the right content. And so I think the other thing, right, rather than narcissism, though I think that certainly underlies some people's behavior, is it's really a race to capture attention. It's competition, right? And then that says like, I need to post more. I need to post more provocatively. I need to post in different spaces. I need to try new things to capture more attention. And I can do that because the cost to posting, right, is financially very cheap to do.
Yeah.
Man, I just wanted Larry to like the promo video, man. That's all I wanted, man.
I would say, in addition to that, as a society, it seems like we're focused on self. Everything is about my happiness, my truth, my. And so I think that really has changed our mindset. I will just speak just for me in particular. It's like me. So that's a simplified answer to your question. But I do think as a society, we're focused on ourselves instead of the other person, and how we can help serve another person. It's about how can I get what I want when I want it.
Mm. So,
Thank you.
Dr. Watson, you talked a little bit about the impact of social media and as far as loneliness. Can you talk, and Ms. Hill as well, talk about, has there been any research or any data that has been shared that talks about the relationship between social media and loneliness?
That's a good question.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's been huge amounts of research on this. Lots of it correlational in nature, so it's hard to sort of experimentally
Mm-hmm.
create the paradigms to demonstrate this. But a lot of research looking at national surveys, international surveys, right, panel data over time, where they say, like, let's look at cohorts, people's ages, right, groups of ages. Let's look at how often they use social media. Let's look at the types of social media, and then like let's look at these life satisfaction measures that they have. Let's look at health outcomes that they might have. And so there's a multitude of research on that within the computer science literature, within the psychology literature, within even like economics literature, right? As you can think about some of the financial implications across the board, right? I think there's very strong evidence that demonstrates increased usage of social media leads to lower life satisfaction and more negative outcomes like depression.
Wow.
Yes, and as I was doing some research for this podcast, I came across a journal in the National Library of Medicine, NIH, and the title of it is Associations Between Social Media Use and Loneliness.
Hmm.
And one of the conclusions was that yes, like, and we talked about this evening, like there is a strong correlation between the two, and that it said the study showed that more time spent on social media was associated with higher levels of loneliness. In particular, people who use social media as a means for maintaining relationships. And it goes back to what Dr. Watson was saying about that relationship piece to the social media addiction.
Appreciate that.
So, Ms. Hill, talk a little bit about kind of, I know now we've moved into like back in the day, right? When we were growing up, bullying was actually physically bullying, right? Like somebody was picking on you, but
Taking your lunch money.
right, you know what I mean? Like calling you names, so you go back and fighting back and forth. But talk a little bit about now the social media platforms. How is that online bullying present, the harassment? Like, talk about how that affects. I mean, I know you're probably seeing it in effects with some of the younger children. So how's that impacting them?
In my experience, significantly. Again, it's about how can I inflict harm on someone else without laying a hand on someone. So it kind of takes responsibility off that person. Um, and just generally, I don't know, it's hard because you can't get away from it. It's 24/7. And not only, even if you delete it or if someone deletes it, it's still there in the internet. You can never get away from it. And I couldn't imagine living under that constant pressure of never being able to get away from your bully. Like we mentioned back in the day, you could. Once the bell rung at 3 o'clock, you don't see them again until 8 o'clock the next morning. But now it's constant, and you get those dings or those notifications in the middle of the night. So it could wake you up. You just never can get away from it. It's a tough
Wow.
environment for our students.
Yeah, I think
Dr. Watson?
she captured it. I think quite well, right? The other caveat I would add to it, or the thought I would add is, even though, right, you're incurring this psychological harm from cyberbullies, because you're also getting these dopamine hits, right? It creates this negative spiral. So it leads to people effectively leaning into it, right? Effectively leaning in because they're getting some level of attention, which is chemically leading their body
Oh,
to
wow.
respond, right? As opposed to just pulling away from the internet entirely, shutting down their social media accounts. For many people, it leads them to the constant monitoring. Is someone going to say anything positive? What's the next thing someone's going to say? Okay, why did they stop saying things? What's going on elsewhere? Um, and so it is a challenge because the bullying doesn't just sort of directly inflict psychological harm. It also causes this spiral where it leads people to lean into social media even further, right?
Mhm.
Because of that cost is so low to get impressions. It leads us to say,
Mm.
let's try something different, right? Let me post with a different look. Let me say something else, right? And you go into kind of this tug of war pattern where you're like, let me keep A/B testing. Let me keep trying stuff. Okay, they're attacking me, but I'm going to get it right eventually. I'm going to create the perfect image eventually, right? And with bullies, oftentimes that's not the case, right? It's like
No.
they're going to dislike you for the fiber of your being, regardless of what you do. And so it creates like a really, really tough situation over time as well.
Yeah, I completely agree. I would say, and it's not the same, so I'm not comparing myself to what students have to go through nowadays, but being an elected official, I am topic of a lot of conversations like on social media, in the news. People make comments not knowing the full context in which maybe I said something or maybe a board decision was made. And so someone takes something out of context and they run with it. And now all these people are like, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. And so then, like, you can't really defend yourself because, it's just, it's hard and it takes on a life of its own. And so, but even though I know those conversations are happening, depending, on, although I know it's happening, I still go back and check the comments. One of the first things I was told as I was running for school board was never read the comments.
Yeah, never read comments.
But it's like, but I have to read it, so you want to read like what negative thing are they saying about me now? And so then you do end up internalizing some of that, even though again, you shouldn't read it. It's not healthy for you. What they're saying isn't true, but you still go back and you read it. I don't know if you can put a, a psychological or terminology to that, but it's an interesting phenomenon. Like I know it's not healthy, but I still go back and read the comments. So
It's funny that you
a
say
harmful
that, but
word.
I was told never to look at my rate my professor. And I looked at it one time, and that's because I was being interviewed about it. And I was like, what is this? And it was like the other professor, like, remember I told you not to go check it. This is what the students got to say about you. And I was like, oh, okay. And after I checked it that one time, I said, I'll never check it again. So
Yeah.
Hey, so what they say about you? That's what I want to know, bro.
um, it gave me a hot tamale. And I was like, it was stupid. Anyway, so we have a question from Daria.
Hello, everyone. I just wanted to piggyback briefly about the common denominator. Well, so listening to everybody speak, it popped in my head that prior to social media, let's say reality TV. So that's where I think a lot of this kind of segued into. And now we've been watching social media or watching reality TV for so long, we now know that it's like wrestling, right? So it's probably a little bit scripted, it's probably a little bit fake, but in the beginning, we were sure that this was legitimate and so on and
Oh
so
yeah.
forth. And so what I've noticed is the production companies and the creators of the platforms have to have a villain and they have to have a good guy. And so, what I think people have tried to do is to take that in an incremental way and monetize it because of the capitalist
Mm.
society that we're in. Now, people are getting paid to bully other people on social media. People are getting paid to be overly sexualized on social media. And so, they've just taken it from a script on a show that is probably difficult to get onto, and they made their own show. Like YouTube started out as our sort of reality TV. And then it went to a full on production. And now it's on social media where it's low hanging fruit, if you will, because it's like Dr. Jared said, anybody can get on here. We don't have to wait to go to VH1 and get a contract. We can just, it's free. So it's a low cost, but it's a high payout getting those impressions because you're getting real money. Some people do not even have a desire to work anymore because they are getting paid to go on social media and be, so I just wanted to make that comment because that's just something that I've noticed as to how we've all been kind of corralled into this direction. And so I just wanted to make that comment because I definitely, like Ty said, I am a proponent of not being on social media, but I find myself there. I don't know if it's just I can pull away, I have control, right? So it's like
Gotcha.
almost a challenge for me to know that it's not going to bother me. But I could not see myself in either of anybody's shoes on the panel and have comments of people degrading what you've worked very hard to do. So kudos to all that you do, and thank you for your comment.
Hey, Dara, make sure you go to our YouTube page, RAD Podcast, and make sure you like it and make a post, a good comment.
Hey, I'm sitting
I
here
sure
thinking,
will be. I got
if they paying the bullies, do the person getting bullied get paid? Like, I'll be that person. You can bully me. I can take it. I
no,
can
but what
take it.
happens is we can that. So what we could do is we could create that, right? Everybody, there's a platform for everybody. There's somebody out there, you could create that. We could just go on and set this all up. But what happens is just like on reality TV, somebody's going to eventually get tired, somebody's going to get mad, and then that's when the reality really comes out, and that's what people are looking for.
Gotcha.
So it's not a risk I'm willing to take because I feel like reality TV is a marriage killer. Everybody that I see that goes on reality TV and they're married, they've struggled to get out of. That's my opinion. There's just no facts on that.
True.
I'm just going off of what I see.
All right.
That's a good
So
point.
as we talk about social media and how much you can put out there, I start to think about the way we were raised. And one of the things, I'm sure if you grew up in a Black household, you've heard, hey, what happens in this house stays in this house. Well, social media now does not allow that. You see like kids posting their parents, vice versa. So what concerns do you all see with privacy being exposed and data exploration?
So I probably have a bit of a hot take on this. I'm not too concerned with it, right?
Okay.
And I'll tell you why for a couple reasons. One, who am I to say that I'm special, right? Like, if none of us have privacy, then we're all kind of on equal footing in some regard, right? So like, the world is changing. I don't know what the future of that world looks like. Trying to cling to the past of what privacy meant and what it looked like. Who am I to say that that's something that I need in my life? Who am I to say that I'm special? The second one is, for many of the platforms we use, it costs us nothing financially, right? But you can't just get things for free, right? So like, the companies have to sell our data to make money. And so we enter into an implicit contract with them, right? Like, we're on Facebook. Who are we, to be upset that Facebook is selling our data when we're using their platform for minutes or hours a day, right, for free? And so we have to be cognizant of like that implicit contract that we're engaging in. And the third one is, how many of us have been pumped when, a targeted ad hit, right? It was like, oh, I'm hungry. Oh, here came the coupon for that food I wanted, right? And so, like, at the same time, there are some benefits to giving up some of our privacy too, right? I'll caveat that with one thing that's, a little scary, and that's like, we are emotional creatures. Right. And so if the data scientists are good enough to understand who we are, they do have the capability to play with our emotions, right? To feed us things that will hurt us, right? Facebook was caught running an experiment a few years ago where they were feeding sad content to people.
Right.
and then looking at how long people were staying on there versus feeding happy content to other people and seeing how long people were staying on their platform. So they were trying to understand what kind of content they should optimize in their algorithm to maximize time on the page. So that is a little scary, but the rest of it, I'm more so optimistic with the future of technology than I am pessimistic.
I would agree. I kind of feel the same way from that perspective. When it comes to what goes on in my house stays in my house, I'm a private person, so I don't want things on Facebook or social media from that perspective. But with the algorithms and things like that, I've learned to accept it. That's just where we are now, not to fight it.
Yeah, it's kind of just there, right? We just have to accept it and just kind of make it our own.
Mhm.
So before I ask this next question, I want to ask that. I think Larry muted me. Anybody from
No, I don't even have my hands on. My hands is up. Like I'm not touching anything.
but anybody from the audience that would like to ask our panelists a question before we skip to the next question?
If they don't, I have a question.
All right. What's your question, bro?
Are y'all on social media? And if so, are you addicted to it?
Yes, I'm on social media. And if addiction, the classic definition of addiction, I would say, yeah, I have a draw to it. I'll pick up my phone and look. I'm not really searching for anything. I would say yes, sadly. Yes.
I
Although I
appreciate your
can't put my phone,
transparency.
yeah, it's what it is. I mean, yeah, I'm guilty of, like I said, having my phone during dinner sometimes, or when we're having family conversations, I'll pick up my phone and just mindlessly scrolling through Instagram or Facebook. So I would say sadly, yes.
You muted.
Someone's going around muting all of us. Um, yeah, I mean, I think, in that regard, I am.
That was a long
Right. I mean, so I wouldn't say that I crave social media. Right. I can go like a full workday without checking it. Right. But when I do have that downtime, if I'm watching a TV show, it's hard for me to just watch a TV show, right? Like it's like, cool, let me check Bleacher Report, let me check Instagram, let me scroll through Twitter or a message board while I'm doing that. I don't post a lot of content, so I'm more of a lurker than I am a poster, right? So I'm not looking for that feedback, but I want to be apprised of what other people are doing. But yeah, I think it falls under the broader definition, right, of addiction.
Wait, Bleacher Report is social media? I don't think that counted.
Oh, you got friends on Bleacher Report. You can
Do
follow.
you? Oh,
Yeah, you
I
can
just look
follow
at
people.
Laker stuff.
Yeah, you can follow people. You can comment on each other on the content and have little dialogues.
Okay.
So Larry, are you on social media?
Not really.
Why?
I don't need people to know what's going on in my life. And plus, hell, my wife live on it. So everything, if I was wanting to be private, she put us on there anyway. So as long as she don't do it before we go to the places, like I remember people used to put, I headed out of town. I was like, well, hell, you just let everybody know nobody's at your house.
Right.
But
Yep.
I do have like a incognito page that I was using just for social injustices and but I got to the point I spent so much time arguing with other people about the injustices that happen to African Americans, Hispanic Americans, and every other ethnicity, but primarily Black men, and just got tired of fighting especially the what is it? The blue crap that they have made up. Blue Lives Matter.
Lives Matter.
Yeah, so spend too much time arguing with them. And so I can't tell you the last time I made a personal post on that. So nah.
No, I hear you, man. I mean, I'm always on social media, but mainly I'm on social media posting stuff, for our business, right? So I'm doing RAD podcast posts and
You're
trying
the
to
right
post.
person for it.
You know what I
That's
mean? Post
also what an
flyers.
addict would say, right? Trying to justify the behavior.
Right. But yeah, I mean, I post stuff all the time, man. But mainly, I do a lot of posts on LinkedIn, so it's a lot of work related stuff to kind of promote my work brand. But then also, I use Instagram and Facebook to really kind of promote some business stuff that we're doing. Rarely do I ever have time to really kind of just scroll. People be like, "Hey, man, did you see such and such post?" I'd be like, "Bro, like, I really don't have that time. Like, I go on there, post stuff about the show." And then that's it. Like I may have extra 5 minutes where I can look at something that somebody posted, but yeah. All right. Nevertheless, so one of the things we've always wanted, we want to make sure our listeners walk away with something that it's very tangible, that they can kind of incorporate with what they're seeing, whether that's with their significant other, children, within themselves. So talk a little bit about some potential solutions, right? So some ways to kind of mitigate those instances of the effects of social media. And so how can parents, how can, adults really kind of mitigate some of those challenges of the dark side of social media?
Cool. I can point to two very tangibly. Um, so one is to not think about social media as the enemy, right? We got to understand that times are changing. And so as a result of that, you just got to be strategic with redirecting. So as a parent with young children, it's not so much about don't be on the iPad, but it's about here's the type of content that seems like it's good, and let's redirect them towards that content, right? I think that holds true for adults too. When we're thinking about like, it's not so much being on Instagram that's bad, but maybe it's following that influencer that we're making the upward comparison towards versus like our friends, right? So that's something to keep in mind. The second thing that's very, very concrete, there's some really cool research by a friend of mine that demonstrates if our cell phone is in sight, we lose cognitive capacity. That means we lose literal brain power if our cell phone is in sight, right? Why is that the case? It's because we're thinking about social media. We're literally thinking about what is happening on my phone if I can see it, right? So put the phone away, right? Keep your phone in your purse if you're not using it. Keep it in your pocket. Leave it in the bedroom if you're in the living room watching TV, right? It's going to allow you to immerse yourself in the experience, and quite literally, it's going to improve your ability to process information.
Wow.
That's fascinating. Yes, definitely. And I won't add much to what Dr. Watson said, but I do agree with phone free time. So implementing family time, no phones, no social media, you're just spending time connecting with each other. That's something that you can do like in your home. Yeah.
Man, Larry, I gotta tell
Say that one more time. What you call it? Phone what? Phone free time? I need somebody to hear that.
Phone free time. Phone free time.
Hey, Larry, we might need to tell some of our mentees, particularly some of the guys, be like, hey, leave your phone in the other room. They ain't gonna do that.
And I do agree
Oh,
with
man.
Dr. Watson too, educating, because social media is not bad per se, but educating our kids on the harms of social media potentially, so they don't fall into those traps that could be set for them, grooming, things like that, being trafficked by, through social media, with people having easy access to your kids. So I do think learning the dangers on internet, social media, And also, like I said, the phone free time.
Another thing they could do is if they use Samsung has a Samsung Health, and it tracks how often you spend time on your phone. And mine, each week, I try to lower my time usage on my phone. So that lets me know that I'm spending more time doing something a little bit more productive.
That's great. That's great.
So do you all know about any websites or any other, I guess, software, anything to kind of assist folks with that? So maybe something they can use to kind of track their social media, presence, or even track like their usage with their phone. Like, is there something that they can do to kind of mitigate that?
Yeah, I was talking to a parent about this very thing a few months ago, and I don't know the name of the app, but it's like a functionality of the phone where you can turn your kid's phone off. So when they're in school, they don't have access to social media. Now they would be able to make calls to you and calls for emergency situations, but you can control it from that perspective.
I need that app.
Now it's
Yeah.
an option on your phone, where you can go and you can turn it off. Or you can put how much time a person can spend on it. And once you spend that time up, it will be grayed out where you cannot use the app.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
You can do that on Apple as well. And I was just going to add the focus mode on Apple is wonderful. Like whenever it rolled out in an update a few months ago, and it's been fantastic. So like I don't get updates from my social media accounts. So if I want to know if I got engagement, I have to open the app and check, as opposed to having that red bubble pop up. And then personally, it's great for work. So I don't get like my work emails popping up at 6, 7, 8 p.m. when I'm trying to have family time. So in focus mode, you can choose where to get the notifications and when throughout the day.
I like that. Also, some of our guests put some information and some links in the chat as well.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing those resources. That's great.
Yeah.
All right, Dantrayl, what you got for us, man?
Man, I got a quote from an author is unknown, but this individual states, your worth is not measured in likes, it's not measured in comments, nor in notes or followers, but in your ability to love, keep comments to yourself, take note, and to lead. Author unknown.
Like that. Like
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah. So appreciate you all coming on the show. Make sure you all connect. If you all can put your information, emails in the chat, people want to get in touch with you. Also, everybody, make sure you tune in next week as we close out this series on social media. And for those individuals that aren't on social media, you definitely want to tune in next week as we talk about navigating the digital landscape. Our speakers are going to share with you kind of the positive sides of social media and how you can really utilize it, not only to connect with people, but also to potentially monetize some of your ideas or suggestions or things that you have. So make sure you tune in next week.
All right. Thank y'all. Have a great day, and we'll see y'all next Monday.